You're listening to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Dr. Charles Laux here, and this is our episode number 123, and I'm really excited to bring on a wonderful guest who has been a longtime friend and colleague and just an amazing all-around person. It is my pleasure to introduce Gretchen Wyder Zunic. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi.
Yes. Gretchen is the head orchestra director at Upper Arlington High School, which is a suburb of Columbus, Ohio. Go Bucks. And wanted to just super excited to have you here today. So why don't we start by having you just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and where you've been and all the amazing things you've done.
So I did my undergrad at Bowling Green, and then taught for a couple years, realized there was more I wanted to learn about string teaching, and had the opportunity to go to Ohio State and be the teaching assistant for Dr. Robert Gillespie. And so was there for 2 years and helped teach the undergrad string methods classes, worked with Columbus Junior Strings. And then that summer I got married and there were really no jobs. And so I was going to wait tables. Didn't you wait tables at Friendly's? Yeah, I did.
That was like the best restaurant, like growing up, and the ice cream. Oh my gosh! If everybody out there hasn't had Friendly's ice cream, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's only on the East Coast now, unless you go to Orlando. There's one in Orlando.
Oh, is there? Okay.
I was just there a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's fun.
So I was going to wait tables, and then I had met John Delliman at the Ohio String Teachers Workshop. And there was a long-term sub opportunity here in Upper Arlington. And so he twisted my arm, and what was supposed to be like a month ended up being almost the whole year.
Cool.
And then the next year, they offered me a half-time job, which I was okay with. But at the same time, the neighboring district, Hilliard, where you used to work.
That's right.
Was also had an opening, and I said, I'm not interested. And then they came back around and said, no, it's halftime, but this is guaranteed full-time the next year.
Yeah.
Which Upper Arlington wasn't.
Right.
So I went ahead and went through the interview process, and they offered me the job. So that was probably my dumbest year of teaching, was trying to teach halftime in 2 different districts.
Wow. So I didn't realize you taught it simultaneously.
Yes.
In 2 halftime. Oh, because a halftime position's never a halftime position. No. So you were like 1.5 at least.
I did rack up some speeding tickets that year, going back and forth between the 2 districts.
Because how many schools were you at total between those 2 districts?
Well, so in Hilliard, I was at Heritage, and then I was going to be the new director at Darby.
Okay.
And then, so I was basically with Mark Scholl at Davidson, assisting him. And then I was here doing, I think, 3 elementaries, and then sometimes helping at the high school.
So at least 5 buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus the other district.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was crazy. And then both districts came back and said, Hilliard was a guaranteed full-time, and then Arlington, the high school orchestra director, Bill Boggs, who was going to leave, and he was doing high school orchestra and choir. So there was going to be an opening. So John Delliman said he was going to move to the high school, and that if I would stay in Upper Arlington, I could have the middle school. And I really was torn, because both are obviously good districts. Hilliard probably had the far more established string program at that point. But I was young, we had only been married a couple years, was thinking about having kids. And really at that time, middle school was my passion.
Sure.
And so I ended up reneging on Hilliard and staying in Upper Arlington. And I'll also say the opportunity to grow a program appealed to me because there was an orchestra program here, but it was really small.
Okay.
For the size district, it was incredibly small. So there was something appealing about that. And so fast forward, this is my 31st year here in Upper Arlington.
Amazing.
And we did grow a program. We have about 218 kids at the high school that are in 6 orchestras. And then there's a pull-out chamber orchestra. And then we now start in 6th grade, which is something we switched to after COVID.
Yeah.
And so probably about 125 to 150 kids at each middle school. And those numbers are growing. This year's 6th grade class is huge. In fact, 8th grade is our last small class. And we were not allowed to recruit that year. We're still not sure why. So the 8th grade is really the last small class that we're going to have. So we're going to have some growing pains at the high school in a few years.
Yeah. So it's really cool. It's really cool to hear that story because, there's a lot of teachers that are listening that are considering jobs or, what do I do in this situation? And do you have any advice for some young teachers who are maybe in a situation where you're like 2 halftime positions and you're just trying to figure out like, what's going to be the best thing for me? What's going to work? Are you ready to shake up your next orchestra trip? Kaleidoscope Adventures has been planning performance travel beyond expectations for more than 30 years. They know the best destinations and the most iconic venues for orchestras. Check out the Kaleidoscope Adventures link in the show notes below for fresh ideas and inspiration. And then let them do their magic. They'll handle all the details from start to finish, so all you have to do is enjoy the experience.
I mean, I think at that point, I knew that my passion was middle school. So that really was the driver of my decision. In Ohio, it's a little bit different because, a lot of districts will not hire you after so many years.
Yeah. I mean, that's a reality.
I tell student teachers, at least in Ohio, you need to kind of be where you want to be by year 5 or 6. I do know people who haven't been hired because they had 3 years of experience.
Yeah.
And, it just depends. It's, Ohio, like everybody else, school funding is a massive issue.
Yeah.
And so
they're looking for the lowest price. I mean, when I got the job in Hilliard, I think Mark Scholl had to pull some teeth with the district because I had 7 or 8 years at that point, and so it's different. And then, down here, we've had some people move to the area. We talked in previous episodes of people with, 15, 20 years, and they just walk right in and they give them all their years and the full pay and the degrees and everything. And there's no limitations. They're just, I guess they're trying to find the best people. But that's not everywhere. It's really tough.
So, I mean, I think it has to do with where, you have to really like what you're doing because you're going to be doing it a long time. And I think teaching has gotten a lot harder since when I started. I started teaching in 1991, and it was basically I got hired and go teach strings. There was not a lot of what I would call micromanagement at all. I was lucky. I started in a program called Findlay. And there were 3 of us that were teaching strings. So I was lucky.
They had a good program in Findlay, and I don't know if they still do. I don't know anybody there, but I know that for the history, that was a good program. It was right near your undergrad, so good place.
Yeah,
to teach.
I did some field work down there during my undergrad. Okay. So I was lucky. I had a colleague who was close to my age, and we hit it off. She was another Bowling Green grad. But I think teaching in general has gotten harder over the years. What
do you think some of the reasons are?
COVID. I just think
I know we have to be careful about what we say.
No, I think to me, it's a societal thing. I think we just keep expecting schools to fix all the problems we can't fix. And so when you talk, I mean, even just kids' mental health and well-being and making sure kids are fed, that they have the things that they need to come to school. I look at, my mom just retired after, 50 years of service. She was a teacher, and then she was on the school board and ran a closet for families that needed, and they had food, they had backpacks and school supplies and clothes, and this idea that kids can't be successful unless they have what they need. And so I think as teachers, we're just, we used to joke about the things on our plate. And in fact, we even had a convocation one year where an assistant superintendent brought out a plate. And I think, she was meaning it as a joke, but I don't think the teachers even at that time felt it was funny. Because in my career, it's literally, we just keep adding things to the plate that we're asking you to do. And I think even earlier in my career being a specialist, we were sort of, some of that stuff didn't reach us yet in terms of what we were being expected to do on top of our teaching jobs, but now proctoring tests and, all
teaching
these
reading. I mean, I know teachers are teaching reading and the social emotional health. There's all these things that they've stacked on top, and it's needed, and I don't know if it's, like you said, it's societal, but there's a lot of homes that aren't providing what they need, kids need, whether it's physical items or just, like you said, mental health type of issues. And I also feel that technology is playing a detrimental role.
Yeah, I just literally read an article, I want to say it was in the New York Times, and really talking about even China is moving away from using electronic devices. There's a lot of schools that are going back to pen and paper.
I was just reading about it. I think it was in Kansas. There's a district that's like scrapping all the Chromebooks and everything, like nothing, pencil, paper. Let's go back.
A band director who's been gone for a while, and I used to talk about it. There's something about when we were in high school and college, and I didn't even have a typewriter of my own in college. And so we had to handwrite draft after draft after draft of things. And as you wrote those drafts, and you were, there's something that happens in your brain as you're doing that, and you're processing it in a much different way than kids today are learning how to process information.
Or not with the ChatGPT, able to write the draft for you or an outline or anything, I mean, it's taking you away.
It's a different, and I understand there's the push that we have to prepare kids for the world that they're going to inhabit. But I still think for most jobs, there's an idea that you should be able to write a complete sentence. You should have a grasp of spelling. And the idea that, yes, it's amazing that I can pull out my phone and find out any fact or piece of information. But there's something about the process of, again, not going back to what we did was the best, but, going to a card catalog and finding, and then you had to narrow down your resources and you had to go and you had to pour through those resources.
Right. You had to actually open a book, and first find the book, and then open it and then, cite it. I just remember having all those note cards with, information, and then the source on the back, and then if it was a direct quote, the page number and all. I mean, that just doesn't exist anymore.
No,
very little.
I think it's what we're seeing is kids aren't able to think in the same way.
Yeah.
I think to use that word processing again, they're not being asked to process things and learn things in a way that's, I think, helping them long term. Get back to that study, I think we're finding that we need to go back and have kids doing some paper and pencil things. It's why I think right now the arts classes, and especially playing an instrument, are so important, because kids are not doing enough.
Right.
They're not physically doing things. We talk about the loss of fine motor skills, those sorts of things. I think the kids need to be doing. In fact, when I was at the middle school, and I stole it from someone, but it was basically like, this classroom is a tech-free classroom. Like, we're using technology, but it's a couple hundred years old.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we're going to be using technology in a much different way than you're going to use in your other classes. And it makes me sad, I won't get in trouble for saying this, but in Ohio, there's a huge push for college and career readiness,
Sure.
and then job readiness. And so one of the things that we've had to do as a school is sort of talk about what depending on what career a student might be interested in, here's a possible schedule for
Here
you.
are the options in this particular area. Yeah.
So it's heartbreaking that and we've already brought it up, and so we're going to look at it, but most of these careers, when you look at the electives, there's no music and art.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm going to take architecture, or I'm going to take design, or I'm going to take this.
Yeah.
And I would argue that there's plenty of time to take those classes in college. What they really need to be doing is taking a class where they're really utilizing their brain,
they're learning the most valuable skills that they're going to use in the job force. And I tell the kids this, is that where else are you going to go to have to collaborate with, 40 or 50 of your colleagues, right? Where else are you going to have to watch, listen, adjust on the fly, be spontaneous, be creative, all at the same time? Like, there's no other class.
Well, and you think, I talk to my kids about, think about when you're playing a piece of music, like, for every note, think about how many decisions your brain is making instantaneously. What string am I on? What finger's down? Where is that finger going? What direction is my bow going? Is it a smooth bow? Is it a short? Your brain.
And that's just a few examples.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's something that's really hard to quantify. But, and too, like you said, those skills, we talked about it last week. We had picture day, our yearbook picture day, and, their job was literally just to bring their uniform. And we had kids in white socks and gym shoes. And so, we kind of started laying into them, and we're like, this is not about the fact that you maybe can't see the white socks. It's about the fact that at some point you're going to get a job, or you're going to go to college, and someone's going to give you give you some expectations,
right,
and it's meeting those expectations. And I said, by the fact that you made a choice to say, well, my socks don't matter, that you may think, okay, right now, but what we're trying to do is prepare you for when you're in a high pressure job, or when you're in college and that professor says, I expect A, B, C, D, that you understand that I need to do A, B, C, and D, and then not cut corners, because I am making a decision that doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, I put a grade, we did ours, I put a grade on it, and yes, when I put their, photos, the group photos in our program book, yes, I have to Photoshop black shoes on kids and color in their socks, or, whatever. I mean, we shrink it down, you don't see it, but,
right.
But it's you're right. It's the responsibility factor. And that's one of the huge words in my classroom is being responsible.
Well, and I think there's a lot too about the discipline of what we do that I think is missing in a lot of other areas of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back to even, the technology devices and what kids are exposed to and what they're allowed. We were just talking about kids being outside without coats on, and I have so many, parents who are like, well, it's not worth the battle. And I'm like, but you're the parent. Like, literally, there's stuff, but I think kids in general don't have maybe aren't expected to have the discipline and those types of things that generations previously were. And I think, again, that plays out when you're talking about kids being ready for college, career, whatever. Again, it's having that discipline to be able to say, I can do this, because I have practice doing it. One of my most heartwarming stories, I taught these brothers, all three of them, and they were very spread out and just the nicest kids, but we're never, ever going to light the world on fire.
With their music or just in general?
With their music.
Okay.
Oh no, very smart boys, very smart boys. But the oldest brother, I would be doing a playing test, and he would pass up his rubric for me to grade, and it would have like a $10 bill clipped to it, or it would have, a Starbucks gift card, and just
that one got an A, right? You got 100%. Extra credit.
We had to have the conversation. No, I'm not willing to lose my teaching license for $10. But he, the one brother came up to me, and I taught him during COVID when we were trying to do online, and it was awful. And hopefully nobody ever has to do that again. But I played at his wedding, and he came up, and he just said, I owe so much to you. He's like, all the stuff that you taught us and that getting us through COVID, he's like, that made a huge difference when I got to college. Yeah. He was like, because even though I wasn't in the top group, in fact, he was in like our non-audition group. He said, your expectations of us were so high. And he's like, even during COVID. And he said that just was a game changer for him when he got to college. So I think that, when we're talking about what kids need, I think there's some of that discipline and structure that we provide that I don't necessarily know they get even in their other classes now.
Yeah. It's, but that's the greatest feeling though, when you get to see the kids all grown up and they realize how much what you've done, or what they've had, that experience that they've had, has made on them. That impact is just, that's what keeps me going. When I see kids, just being successful and, even if it's not in music, it's just in general.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the only reason I'm on Facebook is just to see my former students.
The best part.
I mean, obviously friends from high school, but I love, seeing these kids as adults and they're having their own families. And I'm just at the point, I have some former students who have kids that are going to be starting orchestra.
Wow. Yeah.
Here, I won't get to teach them because we don't start in 4th grade anymore. But, how cool is that they're, their kids are going to do it. And, that's the thing too. I don't know who just said it, that 99% of our kids aren't going to play or go on into music. And so I really feel like our biggest job is creating future consumers.
Sure.
And, I have another student, football player, lacrosse player, total jock. And I'll be honest, was a pain in the rear end a lot in high school. Just always wanting to horse around and all that. But took playing the viola kind of seriously. And he sent me a text the other day and he's like, I have my first orchestra concert. And I was like, what? And he's playing in the orchestra.
Oh. Yeah.
And not a kid I would ever have expected, and he probably won't play beyond that.
But that's okay, because he can do that forever, and that's what I tell the kids is like, you can do this forever. You love soccer, great. You'll be able to watch it forever, but you won't be able to play it forever. I mean,
right?
Most likely, right?
No.
Yeah, I saw a post of one of my former students who was a cellist, and now her daughter's playing cello, and she put up pictures of her daughter's first concert, and I was just like, that is just so cool,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you really do start to feel old.
Yeah, definitely old. So, when you start teaching, here's the thing, like you teaching as long as we have, and you start teaching at 21, and you teach kids who are 12. They're only 9 years younger than you, and now you're in your 50s, and they're in their 40s. That's just weird.
I know. Yeah. It really is weird. But that again, that's probably, other than the actual teaching and being with kids all day, I think that's probably the part I love most is reconnecting with them.
Yeah.
And sort of see, how they turned out, what are they doing?
So in the classroom, I know you taught middle school for a long time, and now you're at the high school. How and I know you helped at the high school and you've done high school, but how was it going from like full-time middle school to full-time high school? Just for people who are listening that are maybe thinking about making that jump. I don't ever call it a moving up, because it's not a move up. It's a different move, right?
It's interesting. The whole time I will be honest, for many, many years, I taught 4 through 12. Our program was small enough that we taught elementary, I taught middle school, and I either assisted at the high school or taught the lowest group.
Okay.
And we were just talking about this, trying to figure out when we added the third orchestra, and it was not long when I had my daughter, the year afterwards, I went halftime.
Okay.
And then when I came back full time after that is when we added a third level of high school.
Got it.
And I started teaching it at the high school. And I mean, I was primarily a middle school teacher, but I loved working with those kids.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's been the biggest growth in our program. We have one, like our Class A group, Chambers, the AA, and then we have 2 Class B groups, and we have 3 Class C groups.
Wow.
Our biggest growth has been in kids who, you know, aren't going to take private lessons, most likely are not practicing.
Yeah.
But they want to be in a group and they want to make music. You know, I've had over the last few years so many football players and wrestlers and basketball players. And, you know, I love those kids in the same way I love the kids that are in the top group.
Sure.
They have a different skill set. But I think they have that same desire to be in a quality group and have a good experience and that camaraderie. Again, you cannot replicate making music with other kids. But no, middle school was my main thing.
Yeah.
And then we added the second C group. And so then I stopped teaching 4th and 5th grade because I didn't have room in my schedule. So it was sort of a gradual transition into preschool. And all of a sudden I was very torn because, again, I love middle school. I was there 26 years, miss it. But I loved working with these Class C kids and, you know, just having those experiences. We do every other year, we do a trip with open to any kids in orchestra. And we have seen the bonding that goes on between kids and the different groups is, you know, I'll see 2 kids walking together and I'm like, how did those 2 connect? Like, this is the kid, the Class A group that's in regional and all state. And this is a kid who, like, probably, you know, is one of the ones that leaves their instrument at school all summer. And, you know, but those connections too, I think, mean a lot.
It's fun.
The other thing I will say about leaving the middle school is that as a teacher, we were much more micromanaged
At the middle school.
And when Ed, my ex-husband, was at the high school and I was at the middle school, you know, there were so many things that I was responsible for doing that he didn't have to do.
Right.
I
know. I talk to my feeders all the time, and they have lots of different things to do, and
it's and it makes me sad. But at the high school, you're just given a lot more latitude, I think, to make some decisions about.
And that may vary depending on situations too. People are listening like, no, my high school, you know, whatever. But yeah, I think every admin's different. And I know, you know, mine's amazing. They're super supportive, but they don't micromanage. They trust us to do our job. And, you know, we're not signing in, signing out and things like that. But at the same time, I know that if one of us wasn't doing our job, there would be consequences, you know, and then there would be actions taken. So, you know, there's that level of trust that some admins have, and maybe some don't as much.
Well, I think that's another thing that's changed a lot since I started teaching.
Yeah, I think we had talked about that in the preview that before we started recording, that you had some comments or some thoughts on admin changes and how it's kind of.
When I started teaching it, a lot of it was just, you know, go teach. And I think maybe we had like 1 or 2 formal observations. And, you know, it was old school, like write out your lesson plan, turn your lesson plan in. And again, they usually didn't know what you were talking about. But they were very supportive. And I was really lucky when I started teaching at Jones Middle School here. I had 2 women principals, and it's funny because when I met them, they did not know, you know, John had behind the scenes sort of worked this out that he was going to go to the high school and I was going to start teaching at Jones. And so John took me over to meet these women, and they clearly were not happy that this decision had been made without their input.
Ooh.
And I left that meeting and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to work super hard to impress these women. Like, they're already, like, I'm already working at a disadvantage, but they turned out to be just two of the most amazing principals. December would roll around and they would pull me in and they'd say, okay, we know it's going to get crazy. What day do you need the chairs moved down? What day do you need the stands? What else do you need help with? Just this very supportive, what can we do to help you if you went and said, hey, I think I need this for my kids. And then I would say the last 10 years, I think there's been a drastic change. I think there's 3 reasons. One, I don't think they teach long enough.
Okay, so you're saying like they're going into admin and they've only taught a couple years and
yep.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't you don't really know how to teach until you've taught at least 5, and then you're starting to figure it out,
So I think, I mean, I did get in trouble. I took an administrative class a couple years ago, and I'll be honest, I have less than zero desire to be an administrator. I mean, that is not.
It's not for everybody. Some people got it. Some people want it. I would never in a million years want that. I
felt like I should get an administrative degree so I could learn to think like them.
Oh, that's
like
smart.
To know what are the things that they're thinking about when they're making decisions to say no to me, or we're going to have this initiative, or we're going to do this.
Did you get your degree in admin?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No. But I took this class
Sure.
And, I kind of got called out because the professor was talking about it's a very different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't need to teach long. And I said, I fundamentally disagree with that. The best administrators that I have had, and I've had a lot, we have 5 buildings. I've taught
outlived them. Yes.
all 8 schools. I've had a range of administrators, but the best ones I've had are the ones who really spent, a decade at least in the classroom, and they understood teaching, they understood good teaching, and they understood kids.
Yeah.
They understood the magic that happens and the things that you can't always quantify. I had an administrator one time. He was younger. We figured out I could have taught him, and I really did like him. I did like him and respect him. And he went on. He has a degree from Princeton in administration now. So but I like to give him a hard time. And every year we would have to make goals. And there would be a personal goal and a building goal. And I'm running around. It's the beginning of the year. I'm starting beginners, and I'm in 4 buildings, and I'm doing all these things. And he's like, you haven't turned in your goals. And I said, I said, it's on my list.
A goal is to make a goal for you sometime.
I said, I'm not going to get them done. And so he literally followed me all the way to my classroom, which was on the 3rd floor in the back of the building. And I said, Matt, here's the thing. I said, all the years I've been here, nobody's ever asked me at the end of the year about whether I met my goals or, how I might want to adjust my goals. I said, I feel like this is just something you need to check off on a list. And so he was offering to basically write my goals for me. That's how bad he needed me to get it done so he could check it off a list. That's when you start to realize that, things have changed. But yeah, I think there's, the not understanding teaching and learning and understanding that stress that teachers are under.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing that I think is different is they never worked in a time before we just had unending testing. I mean, our high school is basically done when we come back after spring break because we have all of our end of course testing, which messes up 3 weeks. And then literally AP and IB tests start.
Yeah. So we have the same thing, and we do our concert the 21st of April. And after that, you can't. You could, but the kids are going to be stressed. Or I mean, you're not going to get them, and they're going to be out of class all the time. And you got this kid taking this test, and they're all, it's everywhere.
And I even had a really good discussion with my principal last year because I said, we've tried to come up with these other projects because we started doing our concert in April. After I think 3 years ago, I said, I'm never doing a May concert again. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But even, we tried to do a rock brand project, which we stole from Aaron Broadhurst and Hilliard. Last year we did a big unit about music and the Holocaust.
Cool.
But even then the kids are in and out. So it's like, literally, what are you supposed to do in this whole 5-week stretch?
We do small ensembles, and then, kids that are there can work on their own part. And then when they're there together, they work together. And it's kind of controlled chaos, be honest with you, because it's like kids are everywhere, and, but, I think that's the best we can do. And then they play their ensembles for their exam. That's their final exam.
But, the amount of testing we do, and I'll be the first one to say it, it's not about kids. It's not about, tracking kids. It's literally about money. It's about the testing companies making bazillions of dollars. You can't convince me that generations of us, and I think maybe we took one bubble test a year.
Yeah.
I
remember the Iowa test. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously in high school you took some, but it was not we shut the school down for SAT and PSAT and ACT. I mean, there's so much lost instruction time.
I agree.
Compared to when we started teaching. So I think that's another thing is these administrators, they don't understand how good life was when we were literally just testing these kids to death.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's just me. And that's, again, the span of the career I've had of when I started, and we just weren't doing that.
Yeah. Back in my day, we used to, but no, we're kind of there, but, I do think that there's some wholehearted topics and some, just the way things were. Sometimes, we didn't have this or that, but we just did things, and we interacted, and I don't know, it was just a little more wholesome.
Well, but even if
genuine.
If you think about right now, so when we just did the PSAT this fall. So think about what that costs for every high school teacher who's getting paid a salary to stand for 3 hours and watch kids color bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
So and then you think the lost instructional time that you can't get back from that. The cost of the tests.
Yeah.
It's you can't convince me, because, even now with these end of course tests, by the time the teachers get the data back, those kids have moved on to the next level. So it's not even like the old day where you're taking your data.
Not formative,
and saying,
not formative.
I didn't teach this well, or I need to rethink what I did, or, I tease my kids all the time, though, that lucky we don't have end of course tests in orchestra, especially my Class C kids. I tease them. I'm like, it's a good thing you don't have to take an end of course test. And then I think the third thing is really that schools are becoming every day more and more of a business model. And, I'll go back to, we're not making widgets on an assembly line. And I don't think the business model works. What I've seen, and I'm not faulting our administration or any administration, but the top-down management, the building, the site-based, which becomes incredibly hard when you are trying to oversee a program that, goes
not just one site, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I think there, being that my former district, Fulton County, was a charter district, so every school was kind of able to do some things on their own, and there were some really cool things that I think my school did that not every school did. However, I've also heard other schools the principal doesn't want this music program, so the principal has full choice to disband and hire more reading teachers or math teachers or whatever it is. So I think that it can be good, but it also can be negative when you have a charter district or building site-based administration.
Well,
without some oversight.
Even when you have different feeders coming into your high school and decisions that are being made that would create a situation where the kids are not able to get the same experience or the same instruction. And so then you're getting them all as freshmen and they're all over the place, which, not necessarily here, but, there's a lot of issues with that business model of, I'm going to run a school like a business. And my joke had been for many, many years, my book was going to be called "It's Not About the Kids," because
yes, I remember that.
I feel like over, the course of my career, the number of times I watch decisions get made that are about adults and not kids just baffles me. And I think one of the reasons our program has been successful is, when we had at one point we grew to 4-string teachers, and, we sort of coined this model, kids, content, and everything else. You start with the kids. That's what you're there for. It's about them. And then you worry about the content and then the rest of the stuff. And so, that's me, going to the 3rd floor with my principal following me. Hey, you didn't get your goals done. And I'm not saying to new young teachers, I could do that because I was far enough along my career and he knew I was messing around with him. But yeah, I think, it's hard sometimes because you see decisions made that are going to have a negative impact on what you can do with kids. And that's hard.
It is. It's not fair. It's not fun. It's not right. I mean, the reason we're there is for the kids, to give them experience and teach them about life and have fun and do all these things.
Well, and I think too, getting back to administrators, again, it's a job I would not want, especially after COVID. And I certainly wouldn't want it now. I think the demands on them are probably even worse than what are put on us. But that idea that, I forgot where I was going with this. The idea that, they are making decisions that a lot of times are coming from beyond them.
Sure.
That they can't change or they can't do anything about. And I'm finding more and more that we have to educate our administrators about what our kids need and how what we do is very different from classroom.
Yeah.
It's the other book title would be The Square Peg Getting Jammed in the Round Hole.
Yeah.
For 30 years, when you are not a core content teacher, your life is just very different, and they don't understand, the pressure we're under with recruiting and retention. And
just, how many math teachers are like, okay, we're going to go out in front of an audience. You're all going to take the test and you're going to show them your scores. Like, no, like that's not, let me teach you. And then we'll take these tests. And no, we're on public display every time. So like every time we have a concert, people judge us, people, can critique us. People can make decisions about us, and it is stressful, And I don't really get nervous for concerts anymore, but it's I get nervous for the kids, because I want them to do well. But it's very different, and a lot of teachers and admin don't understand how it all works, especially if they've never been in something like what we do.
I can't imagine being a younger teacher right now. I've had some administrators, in the last 10 years, I would go and I would make my case. I would say, I need A and B for my kids. Like, I really think this is what we need to, these are good decisions. And the administrator would come back with, well, don't you think? Have no clue what I'm really doing or what our kids are doing, but then offer, this other suggestion that makes sense to them, but literally makes no sense. So I do think there's, I think part of the job now is that you have to educate your administrators, and you have to, not just when they're coming in to observe you, but invite them down when you're, we invite them to go on our field trips with us. We invite them when we do activities, that are not part of the norm of what we do, to have them come down and interact and see what the kids are doing. Because I don't think they know, and I don't think they're trained to understand what we do and how it's different and why what we do is different. We got into this battle a few years ago we had a newer administrator about team teaching, and that sometimes there needs to be more than one person in a classroom of 60 beginners.
Yeah, and they didn't understand.
Well, it's this idea that somehow because, there's two people in the room, one of us is slacking,
Oh,
and that's something like, again, for the first 20 years of my career, there never have been an assumption that I was not doing my job.
yeah.
And I feel like now, sometimes that's where the starting point is. I have to make sure that I know that you're doing your job,
Yeah.
or that, I'm going to the middle school. If you want to follow me around for the day, and watch me do a sectional with 10 sixth grade bass players, have at that.
Yeah.
And I will say I love going and working at the middle schools in Ohio. I still hate traveling. I hate the actual physical part of, like, today going out and it's freezing cold.
I don't
By the time you get to the
that.
next building, your car is just warmed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you get back in and it's cold again, or just trekking through the slush and snow, and I would have my instrument, and I had to go to the elementary, so I'd have my speakers and backpack with all my stuff in it. It's like, it was just a lot. Yeah.
Well, it's, but yeah, for younger teachers, I think in some ways they are so much better prepared for the classroom than we were. And you think about the pedagogy, that's available to them. I think all the time about how crazy it is that I can get on Pepper or Stanton's and I can pull up a piece and I can, like, literally look at the score and hear what it sounds like. And I'm like, you have no idea what it was like back in the day where the music came with the little plastic, LP. That you were supposed to play.
Yeah. Before the CDs, it was those little LPs. That's right.
We worked at string camps in the summer, and you went to the reading sessions and you did all the stuff, and you hoped you found some pieces and you talk to each other. So I think young teachers have a lot more advantage in terms of what those skills that they come with. I think the harder skills are like learning how to work in the system and how to work with administrators, how to work with colleagues, how to
behavior management. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. Because I don't remember. I mean, I know there were kids that with the IEPs and 504s and things like that, but it just seems like there's a lot more now. So you're having to cater and make those accommodations. Whereas back when I first started teaching, it wasn't like that at all.
But I will say it's interesting. Most of the kids, and not all, but I would say I have the bulk of them because they're in the non-audition groups. But I will find a lot of the accommodations don't necessarily apply. The biggest one will be the priority seating or leaving if they are overwhelmed or need a break. But, the extra time on tests, I can't give them a time and a half to play at the concert. That doesn't work.
You get to play it again. Yeah.
I did have one girl 1 year who did have it in her IEP that she could chew gum in orchestra, which didn't go over well with,
everybody else. Yeah.
We don't have gum. But yeah, the classroom management, and that's a skill that grows over time. Like you were saying, I'm glad that there's no videos of me teaching my first.
I do have some videos. Years. I do have some student teaching videos, and I'm like, what was I saying? Why would I say that? Why would I do that? But it's pretty crazy. And I listened to recordings from my first few years, and man, I thought the kids sounded so good. they didn't sound that good.
No. We talk about we were joking about over programming before we started, but I want to say my second year, and in Findlay, I was primarily, I did all levels. I did 4 through 12 there too, but I was primarily middle school. And, back then, none of the pop tunes came out for orchestra. You
not
were
right
lucky.
Away.
No, it was like a year, maybe 2 years before. And the music from Beauty and the Beast came out from the Disney movie. And I was like, oh my God, like, we're going to do this. And it was like so too hard. And I'm just still grateful to this day that there's no recording of my kids trying to play that. But that was a huge lesson for me. That was a lesson of, you can't just pick pieces that you want to play. Like, you got to think about who's in your room.
Yeah.
What can they actually do? What's realistic for them to do in 2 or 3 months? and then go from there.
Yeah. I had a student teacher once. It's like, can we play Barbara Adagio this semester? I'm like, and then my kids weren't at all even close to ready for Barbara Adagio, but it's like, I just love that piece. I'm like, okay, here's the deal. It's not always about what you love to play, because you're not gonna be able to, play that right away. But just like you said, catering to what you actually have and what you want to do, or sometimes two different things.
I do a lot of judging for a large group and solo ensemble. And that's another thing too. I've sort of decided that it is the rare high school student that can play unaccompanied Bach well.
Oh yeah.
There's just certain pieces in you said Barbara Adagio, because I've had kids who are like, oh, we have to play that. We have to play that. And there is a percentage of our top group or even chamber group that could do that. But to have the musical maturity and the emotional maturity to carry that piece off in high school,
it's hard.
you have to have 100% of those kids be ready for that.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot.
Well, and I'm not saying there are high schools that can do that. Whether I would do it, I just think where kids are right now, it's just the bar is a little bit higher for some of those,
Yeah.
What we're asking kids to do emotionally, I guess, so not that there aren't high school kids that can do it, but having judged a lot of unaccompanied Bach in the last 5 or 6 years, I've decided maybe it's a high bar for some high school kids.
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging, and I think there's a philosophy of it's all about learning too. So, to perform it at an artistic level, okay, or are you working on it for pedagogical sake and style and sound? And
I think that's anything. I mean, my kids will play pieces all the time that we're not going to perform. It's something that we're going to work on because we want to learn the style, or it's a good teaching piece, but it's maybe not a good performance piece.
For that group. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can't, for a long time, even still, I spend a lot of time in the summer looking at studying scores and listening to music and looking at parts. And, I'll try to, think about what I want, what are good pieces to think about for these kids for this year. But a lot of times, you'll think this is the perfect piece for them, and you throw it against the wall and it just falls.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it is on the floor and there's spaghetti sauce everywhere. And you go, no.
Kids, kids are willing to work on a piece. Kids like a piece, or they're interested in a piece. They're going to work a lot harder than if it's something they absolutely can't stand. So I try to, involve them in that process of selecting. And I know that there's, 3 pieces. All of these will work for the situation.
Yep.
Let's read this. Which one do you guys like? Okay, fine. I don't care.
We've started this. It's called the music shopping project. And it actually started as something that the kids could do on a day I would be out and not have a music sub.
Tell us more.
So I basically show them how to use Lux and Pepper Stanton's. Here's how you go in, and here's how you narrow it down to string orchestra.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you look at, and I also show them, on Pepper, you can say holiday or Halloween, or, the different categories of thing. And then we'll go through and look at some pieces, and we'll talk about the levels, and you're in, the Class C group. So we're going to look, anywhere between 2 to 3.
In Ohio, it's double. They have double A. I didn't realize there was
double A. We just added double A a few years ago. So
okay, because I don't remember that when I was there. So double A, A, B, C. Is there D and E?
No.
Okay, just C for high school.
No, but even if you're looking at so our string group is our C group. Okay. So yeah, I mean that's the lowest class. You can go comments only.
Sure.
Which is festival class. So anyway, I sort of show them around how to use the website, and then their job is to find 2 pieces that they think they're interested in,
and it would fit their group.
That would fit their group, or we do our ensembles for midterms. We started doing this a while ago, so we The kids will do this music shopping early in the year, and then they can also pick a piece for their ensemble. So we let our kids have some self-say in what ensemble they want to be in.
Cool.
I actually will go through and listen to all the pieces. It comes into the Google form, and I look at all of them.
Do they put a link in there for you?
I make them put the link in.
Great.
So yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise you have to search for it. That's perfect.
And then what I'll do is when they'll make their preferences known for who would be in the ensemble. And we do tell them, this is your midterm. So it's 20% of your semester grade. So you may not want to be in with your bestie who you're going to sit and chat with. Right. This is a self-directed thing. So the music shopping, then they go through and find two pieces, and they have to say, well, I think this would be for our spectacular concert next year. I think this would be for the concert where we do full orchestra, or this would be for my ensemble. And then we put them in the ensembles, and then I will give them, anywhere from 3 to 5 pieces that are at the appropriate level for that group. And then they will go off in their groups, and they can use their iPads and listen to those pieces. And I show them how to open the score, and they have to look at their part. I'm like, because you can't come back in a month and say, well, we picked this piece, but now I've decided my part's too hard.
Yeah.
And it also can't be too easy. We talk about that too, because their grade on the days that we break into the ensembles is based on what they do that on those days. They have to submit a short video recording.
Sure.
Or audio recording.
Wonderful.
And so then that is their midterm. We invite parents in. It's a small recital. Cool. And then the last few years, we also, the ones that want to sign up, then can go play at a nursing home for service hours and extra credit.
Wonderful.
But sort of getting them, and I do the same thing as you, for any concert, there are more pieces than what we would do. And they're at the right level. They have the key or the technique that I want them to be working on. But then I will let them, if it's a piece, they're all like, we're going to pick a one that they're the most excited about. That being said, I've also found over the years that sometimes kids will very quickly write off pieces. And so sometimes we talk about that we are not going to love every piece that we perform. As a performer myself, there are a lot of pieces I don't enjoy playing.
Mm-hmm.
But
especially wedding music.
Yeah. But the idea that all music has value, and what is the story coming through the music, what's the intent behind the music, why is this an important piece.
I also talk to the kids about you may not like this piece, but someone else may love it, and you have to perform it so that you can make someone love it, or if it's a well-known piece, particularly, like, you need to play it so that they recognize it. And the performance for, I guess, aesthetic value and entertainment value, whatever you want to call it, that's important for kids to understand too, because we're supposed to be musicians and showmen and whatever you want to call it, but it's important.
No, I agree. We talk about that all the time. I use their parents a lot, and talk about especially, like, how do we set this section up so that your parents know what they should be listening to? What should their ear be hearing? Obviously we want it in tune. We want the right
Everybody
rhythms
can hear
and
that.
all that.
It's not
but
in tune.
terms of the musical phrasing, who needs to be playing the loudest? What's the important part of this? And again, coming back to, because if you went with what kids liked about every song, you'd never play a slow song.
Right.
Because we all know it's easier to play it fast.
Sure. Yeah. Way more work. Way more work.
So, but there's, that's the other thing too. There's there's so much good music out there now.
Yeah.
So
it's easy to find. And it's, the other thing I was going to say earlier too was, there are so many resources, like my studio here. I built this on YouTube University, learning how to put up studs and do drywall and that kind of thing. Like, I learned a lot, and had YouTube not been there for me, I I don't think I would have been able to do this, and then that's the same for kids learning a new technique. They can, they want to learn vibrato. They want to learn an A major scale for 3 octaves. They could find a video. Someone has made a video showing them how to do that.
We did that at one point. We haven't done it in a while. It was actually something Ed did. One of the projects he had the upper level orchestra do was to create video of a technique to say teach a 5th grader.
That's cool.
How to
I did that with my undergrad kids when I was at the university, but to have high school kids do that, that's really cool. Yeah.
And we have a thing too. I call it the etude brute, like etude brute. But they have to, if we're working on a piece, they will have to identify, 8 measures. That's really hard for their section. And then they can work with their stand partner, but create, some exercises that how could we identify why is it hard? What's the thing that we need? Is it the shifting? Is it the rhythm? And so what could you come up with in, 8 to 12 measures that we could work on to fix that or get better at that, and teaching those kids how to break it down. Cause a lot of times, they're just like, oh, it's so hard. Everything's hard.
Yeah. I can't do it. And and that goes to, I think there's a lot of kids now that's like, if I can't do it the first time, I don't want to do it, and, that's a great strategy, is to have the kids figure out, isolate what is really causing me not to be able to play this well the first time, or.
Yeah. And sometimes it's literally, they just can't count to 4,
Yeah.
And coming down to the fact that you guys, or you're not counting your, dotted half note.
Yep.
You're holding it out for 4 beats instead of 3. So sometimes helping them break that down and break it into chunks themselves instead of us doing it, then they go, okay, well, that makes sense. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So the other thing, the big news, and one of the reasons I would reach out to you is that you have not been nominated for an award. Can you tell us a little about that? I know it's a big deal. It really is.
So Barry Manilow, who many of you young teachers will not know, he did write the songs that make the whole world sing. But he was huge in the 1970s, and I give him a lot of credit. He's 82 now, still has a residency in Vegas. But for the last few years, he's had this foundation. It's called the Manilow Music Foundation. And he provides instruments for underserved schools.
Awesome.
As someone who went through inner city school in New York himself, is the first one to say that music, not saved him, but changed his life in high school. He ended up actually going to Juilliard. He's Juilliard trained.
I did not know that.
But his foundation provides instruments for districts and communities that can't, that they want those schools to have a band or an orchestra or whatever. And then the last few years, he's been doing this Manilow Music Teacher Award. And so at each concert, whatever city he goes to when he's on tour,
so it's every city in his tour. Holy cow. Okay.
So every city, and I don't know how I got nominated for this. I'm going to be 100% honest, because
someone who loves you nominated you,
I guess. So I got an email on a Sunday night a couple weeks ago, and I really did think one of my friends was pranking me. I was like, there's no way. And I do.
Well, here's the other thing that I know about you is that you're what they call a Fanilow.
I am a Fanilow.
So that's the ultimate Barry Manilow fan.
I am. Yeah. I have seen him more times than I can count. And, I blame my mother. She had his records on all the time. Johnny Mathis, Neil Sedaka, Barry Manilow, that's what I grew up listening to.
When you grew up with that, there's a sentimental value for sure.
Yes. And so we've been taking my mom. I shouldn't say we. I've been taking my mom. We've seen him in Palm Springs and in Vegas.
Oh, cool.
And so anyway, so I got this email that I had been nominated, and I read it a couple times, and I was like, what?
You think it was spam or a joke?
Well, I thought because everybody knows I'm a huge Barry Manilow fan. And so I thought someone's messing with me. But I do have a friend who won it in Cleveland last year.
Cool.
And so,
So the award is.
So basically there's 10 Columbus nominee teachers who've been nominated, and it's by popular vote. And so you can vote every day, once per email. And so we've got our kids and the community and everybody voting, but you get to go to the concert and you're presented with a $10,000 check for your program.
That's cool.
So not only do you get the recognition as a teacher, which obviously is nice.
Yeah.
But I would get to meet Barry Manilow.
And that would be a dream, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
But really the big deal is, even I teach in a pretty wealthy district. Our budget for instrument repair and maintenance for the year is $2,000.
What?
So
that's
I
crazy.
know.
So you'll be able to use that for all kinds of things.
We just had, we have cellos that only our top group uses every day.
Okay.
And a lot of those were bought back in the 90s. And so we just had the conversation today. They're 30 years old. And so it's time to invest in some of the nicer cellos again. Yeah. But $10,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah. It doesn't go far, though. I mean, when you're buying cellos or basses.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. No. So, you
can get some nice ones and get a few for sure.
So I'm super excited.
Well, I'm going to put your link, your voting link on the podcast notes here. And when does the voting end?
Next Monday at 11:59 p.m. Yes. The 15th.
So I'll get this episode out, and everybody that's listening, check out the description and vote for Gretchen for the Manilow Award. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
So we'll see. I haven't thought far enough ahead to see and the thing is, I know some of the other teachers, but I can't think they're fan of Lowe's. I mean, I am a diehard fan of Lowe's.
Right. That, for me, it would be like if Paul McCartney did that. That would be my dream of winning the Paul McCartney Award and getting to meet him. I don't care about the money. I'll donate if I get to meet him, I'll donate the money myself because I would be just so psyched. But that's so cool. I'm really excited for you.
It's kind of an exciting thing. So, and no, my friends were not messing with me. So
good. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. And like I said, you said this is your 35th year teaching.
So if you include my time being a graduate teaching assistant, This is my 35th year.
Well, you were teaching. I include my year with Bob on that. And so for sure, it's that's amazing. It's amazing. So well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show and sharing all the wonderful things you've done. And again, congrats on the award nomination and your career and all the things that you've done. It's just fantastic.
Oh, it was so good to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
So for everyone, we're going to wrap up our episode number 123. Thank you again, Gretchen Wyder Zunic, for being here. And we will see you all next time on the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. You can support the work I do by hitting that like button and subscribing to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast YouTube channel and visiting www.orchestrateacher.net.